Welcome back to KTSM 9 News today. So there are new questions surrounding last week's emissions release at El Paso's Marathon Refinery in central El Paso. That incident is now drawing federal attention, with Congresswoman Veronica Escobar calling for an investigation. KTSM 9 News reporter Diana Castillo spoke with residents in south central El Paso.
Remember last week we told you about a strong gas or petroleum-like smell reported by many residents who live near Marathon Refinery. Well, now we are getting a better idea about what was released into the air.
If anything happens over there, we're so close that an explosion can just literally blow up our entire home in just a couple of minutes.
Jessica Haudegi has lived near Marathon Refinery for the past couple of years, and she says that she's never really had major concerns about living so close to the facility, except for the flare stack she says sometimes lights up the sky.
It's like so bright, it's like actually looks like it's daylight.
But last week, a strong smell caught her attention while she was out driving.
So even telling my mom, 'cause she was with me, turn up the window and I'll turn on my AC because this is really nasty. It's gonna poison us. And we both ended up getting some migraines, and I was starting to feel really sick for my stomach.
Marathon reported a process upset at the refinery. Now, reports filed with the state show nearly 5 tons of emissions were released into the air, including sulfur dioxide and propylene. Marathon said last week that it identified and addressed the source of the odor, in that air monitoring in the community did not detect readings indicating health risks.
But at the end of the day, it could be your killer. And I never really thought about it up until recently when all of this thing happened and I had no information. And now I have a bunch of fears and a bunch of unanswered questions. And up till this day, that's like a week and a half, like a week now, and still there's no answers.
And now some of those questions are making their way to the federal level. Congresswoman Veronica Escobar is calling on the Environmental Protection Agency to investigate the incident and determine whether Marathon violated any federal requirements. In a letter sent Wednesday, Escobar also questioned why nearby residents and local officials were not notified and what air monitoring was done following the release. Escobar is now asking the EPA to answer those questions and to provide related records by August 31st. Diana Castillo, KTSM 9 News.
We reached out to Marathon for comment about Escobar's letter and have not heard back. Of course, we will continue to monitor filings with the Texas Commission on Environmental Quality for any new information involving the refinery. You can read more on our coverage of this story at KTSM.com.
You know, El Pasoans know that throughout, it's not a daily occurrence, but it's a frequent occurrence that when you're driving past that portion of I-10 or you're in that neighborhood, you're going to smell, the emissions. It's just a fact of life. It's kind of like when Asarco was going on the west side. It was a fact of life. You were going to taste that sulfur in the air. And it's just something you deal with, having that kind of industry, in the middle of our city.
Right.
When this was built, it was not the middle of the city, but it is now.
Yeah, and I'm assuming when it was built, neighborhoods weren't right up on it.
Well, no, you got to remember this is an 100-year-old, business in the middle of this. It's in the middle of the city now, but back then it was way.
That was the
outside
outskirts,
the city.
man. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, think about it. Concordia was on the outskirts of town. So this was way on the outskirts of town. They're not on the outskirts of town anymore.
Right.
And so all of this stuff is just bolstering the case that we need to have outside eyes, including the EPA, looking at what is going on. And they really do need to be better community partners about this.
Right.
It shouldn't have to be pulling teeth to get information.
Yeah, because typically everything is just deferred to the CEQ.
Right.
The EPA doesn't rarely get, I don't even know if they've ever been involved in any situation at the refinery.
Right. I don't know either. But, the neighborhoods, it tells you something that when you're driving past on I-10 and you can smell that in your car with the windows rolled up, and that the neighbors who are right underneath it in the shadow of it, that this particular incident was that focused and that, that shocking to them.
Yes.
That should tell you how bad things really were that particular day, because they deal with this all the time. You know, if you ever drive around the refinery area, you smell it. It's just a constant in the air. So for this to have been that big of a deal, it should tell you exactly how big of a deal it was.